I want to talk to you about a couple of things in GLO-BUS that are happening this year. They're really just kind of cleanup deals. We've talked about some of this before. For those of you who recall the last time that we met as a group and I asked some of the students to leave the room, the students that were in the room, I gave them a tidbit of information, and the information that I gave them was that President Trump had signed the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which changed the amount of the tariffs from Pacific Rim nations. Those nations included many of the Asian nations, not China, and many of the Latin American nations, not Mexico. In changing those, what I did was I reduced the tariffs to 50% of their former level, and I also increased demand in both of those markets by 10% in each market. The reason that I only gave that information to the folks who I kept in the classroom was because those folks had already made their decisions, and sometimes by paying attention and doing the right thing, you get some tidbits of information that are helpful. At any rate, those changes remain, and I wanted everybody to be aware of that. So if you take a look at your camera marketing and your drone marketing screens, what you can see is that the delivery costs, which include shipping and import duties, those for Asia Pacific and Latin America are coming in at exactly half of what they would have come in previously. They went from being 6% to 3%. So I changed that. Also juiced demand a little bit. I increased demand for Asia Pacific and Latin America both by 10%. And that really did affect the demand for those countries. It caused those countries to have more demand. You know, it was price sensitive, and you were able to make decisions based on that complete information. So that did give them a little bit of an advantage. One other thing that I also changed was I did limit the impact of exchange rates. Previously, in any given year, exchange rates could go up by as much as 20%, or they could have impacts of as much as 20% positive or 20% negative. Because of those changes that I made in the simulation, I limited the amount of fluctuations that could happen in Asia Pacific and Latin America, specifically for the Singapore dollar and the Brazilian real. I limited the fluctuations to plus or minus 10% in any given year. So that, of course, is information that anybody could get because it shows you on the home screen what the exchange rates are. But at any rate, those affected the exchange rates that you see here on the camera and drone marketing screen. Okay, so I wanted to make you aware of the special contract offers that are coming up. So every company has the opportunity to bid on special contracts. In each industry, 2 teams will be awarded a special contract, and those contracts are awarded to the team with the 2 teams with the highest value index. So you bid an amount that you'd like to give as a discount or an incentive for people to place an order with you, and that order is equivalent to 10% of your demand in each of the regions. So I'm going to go really high with these discounts, not telling you that you should or should not go this high, but if I go all the way and put a 40% discount on these products, okay, you see that the value index come in from 67 in Europe, Africa to as high as 79 in Latin America. The reason that it takes such a high discount to get a reasonable value index, and that's still a relatively low value index, because as you see, you can only get a 100 value index of 100, and these are relatively low, is that this particular company is actually running sort of a differentiation strategy. So they are sort of disadvantaged when you're running a differentiation strategy. Some of the things that you need to consider when you're doing those bids is your compensation and facilities. You really should only bid on those special contracts if you have capacity in your action capture camera. facility. If you don't have capacity, then it's not a good idea for bidding on that. So if I'll go back to the special contracts, I can tell you what I mean by that. So we all obviously want to increase sales anytime that our contribution margin is positive. So in this case, the contribution margins are still positive in spite of the really, really, really high discounts that we're offering. You see a contribution margin of 986. That's not nearly as good as it would be for a company that's running, say, a cost leadership strategy. They would have a much higher value index than those that are running a differentiation strategy. Let me come over here, and I want to take a look at a company that is maybe running what appears to be a cost leadership strategy. In this case, I'm going to pick, just company G. This is Industry 1 Company G, okay? So I'm going to take a look at them. I'm going to come out, go down to company G here, and for this company, if they bid the special contracts, it's on the special contract offers, you'll see that their prices obviously are much lower than Team A's were. And if they give a 40% discount in each of their 4 markets, then they're going to have a value index in each market of 89. Now, their contribution margins are much higher, even though their value indices are also much higher. Okay, so you can see that there's sort of an advantage for a team that's running a cost leadership strategy because they're going to have more value. So those value indices determine who gets the special contracts, and it does go to the top 2 teams. If you'll click on the help screen, GLO-BUS will open up, of course, some very robust help in a PDF file, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do and exactly how you can make that work. So I'd encourage you to read that thoroughly. There is one thing that I'd like to point out to you. If you'll read that, you'll learn, and it tells you up here, actually, as long as you've got capacity, you'll build those cameras for the special contracts yourself. However, if you run out of capacity because your demand is high, if you run out of capacity, looking at this company here, their assembly capacity is only 1,387 units at max overtime, and their projected demand is 1,363,200 units at this particular time. If they were to get those special contracts, I'm going to click yes here to show that they think they're going to get the special contracts. By the way, this option, when you click yes there, that incorporates the results of getting the special contracts into your forecast. So if I go to compensation and facilities, now you see that they need 65 units to avoid overtime. So they're going to have a tremendous amount of overtime. Okay, if you push your units, and you can also see how the contribution margin went down for this particular company because of the amount of overtime, because of course your assumptions are based upon how much it costs you per unit to build each of those items. So if you get beyond your overtime capacity, you have to outsource those cameras, and your direct labor is $50 per unit when you outsource those cameras. So you have to be careful when you're making the bid, because there's a very real possibility that you could actually lose money on that if you don't have enough capacity. If your demand outstrips your projections and you don't have enough capacity to meet your demand, you're still going to have to fulfill those contracts because you've got a contractual obligation. You have a financial commitment to do that, and that might cause you to lose money because, again, let's look. Average labor cost here is $27.86. If you look at Europe, Africa, the contribution margin is only $11.81. So if we have to pay $50 instead of $27.86, then we're actually going to lose money in Europe, Africa on those special contracts. So you want to be very careful about bidding those. Some folks wanted to know, should I bid them? Should I not bid them? I'm going to leave that completely up to you, but if you do have excess capacity in your facility, it would be a really good idea to bid the special contracts, because that can help to get your per unit costs down, and it can help your company to be more profitable. Obviously, anything with a positive contribution margin helps your company. You just don't want to bid the contracts and have, say have to outsource them and it actually costs you money rather than gives you a positive contribution margin. The last thing that I'd like to say about the special contracts is, how much should you bid? That's completely up to you. For this particular company, last year they bid 15% on their sales promotions. They were willing to give 3 weeks of sales promotions for 15%. Now, I've seen some folks come in, and let me go to a different team here, and I'm just going to pick a different team here. Okay, so if we take a look at this particular company and we look at their compensation and facility, see they're adding a few workstation spaces. We look at their special contracts, they're bidding those special contracts. Okay, so you have the option of selecting whether you're going to get those contracts. That is purely what you think. If you select yes, it folds the financial projections into your performance projections. If you select no, it does not include those financial projections into your performance projections. So that may be a way of hedging your bets. You bid the special contracts, given that most companies typically underperform. And if we look at the Bullseye Award, you'll see most companies typically underperform on revenues and earnings per share. A way to hedge your bets is to say, I'm going to bid these special contracts, but I don't think I'm going to get the special contracts. And then that makes your financial projections a little more conservative, and you're likely to meet your projections if that's the way that things work out. So just be careful when you do that. The final thing that I'm going to say is, people have asked me, what do I need to have as far as my value index in order to have a reasonable chance of winning? Experience has shown me in the early years that if you have a value index of, say, 75, 76, 77, 78, that's going to be sufficient for you to get the contracts. If your value index is less than that, you're probably not going to get it. And here's what you really want to think about. You don't want to come in with a really aggressive discount bid, say of 40% here in Latin America, which runs your value index all the way up to 84, and it affects your contribution margin. You don't want to just run away and win those bids. You want to actually be the second place bidder. You want not the highest value index, you actually want the second highest value index, because the lower your value index, the more of your contribution margin you get to keep. Again, if you'd like to talk about this, feel free to text me. We'll set up a Zoom meeting and I will give you some specific recommendations for your company. Again, I'm just trying to help you to be equipped to make the decisions that you need to make for your GLO-BUS teams. Decisions are due on Monday evening, March the 30th. Talk to you soon.